Hi, my name is Ruthie Zeidman, and I'm from Evergreen Region number 46, and today I'm honored to be interviewing David Hogg, who is founder of March for Our Lives. So David, can you tell us a bit about your advocacy work and what you're working on today?
Yeah, so my main advocacy work really centers around advocating for gun safety. And what that looks like is advocating for stronger laws so that guns aren't able to get into the wrong hands, while also advocating to help give resources to communities or give communities the resources that they need in order to stop young people from wanting to pick up a gun in the first place. So what that looks like is better non-policing based systems to help get kids into therapy, mental health for the 2/3 of gun deaths or suicides, and addressing the not just the how somebody gets a gun, but why they pick it up in the first place.
We have BBYO, which is a large group of young teens. So how can young people fight to make a change in their communities, and how can we become activists as well?
Well, I think unfortunately we live in such at least in our lifetimes, an unprecedented time with the rise of anti-Semitism. Um, that I think activism is something that's not voluntary. The communities, most people who become activists in the true sense, don't do it because they want to. They do it because they have to. It's for their survival. So I think the question of how do you become an activist is a bit moot because you already have to be because your identity is so under threat. Um, and I think in order to get involved with an issue that you care about, what it really comes down to is just focusing on like a local level where power is the most tangible. So either your city council, or in the case of gun violence prevention, your state legislature, especially, and working to change laws there. And what that can look like is you helping to register voters in your community, helping to work on political campaigns, like I recently did over the past 2 years for my friend Maxwell Frost, who used to work for March for Our Lives, and now is the youngest member of Congress, at 20, now barely 26 years old. And I think what it's really about is finding something that it's about finding a feeling. It's about getting up every morning and being excited to work on whatever issue you're working on. And if you aren't doing that, if you aren't excited to get up in the morning and have that passion, it's time to look for some other way of making change. Because ultimately, if you don't have that passion to drive you, you're not going to be able to make this change in the long term because there's so many obstacles that will get in your way that you're going to burn out, and you won't be able to effectively have the motivation, determination, and community, most importantly, around you to develop that. So I think really what it's about is finding what drives you. For me in high school, it was about um, focusing on issues of the school not having enough resources for students, textbooks being overpopulated, because we didn't have enough room, and talking about that in TV production for my class and pressing our high school principal about like, why don't we have enough textbooks, and creating good trouble and frankly pissing off people in positions of power. And I found that really satisfying and exciting. Another example was I actually, right before the shooting happened, I had interviewed in a setup not dissimilar to this. I had interviewed my congressman, Ted Deutsch, at the time, and I pressed him and I was like, why are you taking money from these people? Why are you doing this? How much money do you take from the NRA? It was none, but like I didn't know that much. So it's really about finding what makes you excited. And for me, it was pissing off or scaring people in positions of power to do the right thing. And I think it looks different for everybody, but when you have that feeling, you know it. And I would just encourage you to pursue it and build the community around you so that you persist.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. One of my favorite expressions is good trouble. It's so great. So, yet another shooting has recently occurred at an educational institution, this time at Michigan State University. So I personally have a friend there. I'm sure a lot of our other BBYO teens do as well, friends or family. So, how can we care for our communities and ourselves when things feel so devastating and disheartening?
I think part of it is acknowledging that it's good to feel something rather than nothing. The most dangerous thing that can happen in these moments is us becoming numb to these things happening and desensitized as a generation. Um, I think the way that you can look out and care for your community is just hanging out with your friends and having conversations with them about what's going on and encouraging them to get the help that they need, like going to therapy, like I do, for example, when they need that, and being vulnerable about it and acknowledging that you can't be totally invincible 100% of the time. And sometimes you need breaks, and not to feel guilty about that. We all as a generation, I know, want to do as much as we can to end gun violence, but I would really encourage younger people that are listening that are getting involved in this movement or others to know that part of being a good activist or good organizer or member of any team or movement is knowing when to step up and when to step back, either for other people so they can have a voice or for yourself so that you can rest and not feeling guilty about that. Because you need to know that you can take a break because there are 1,000 other people that you don't even know that are doing the work every day. And they can know that they can take a break because you're doing that work when they can't. And knowing that you're not alone in this. And I think that's part of what makes, you know, organizations and conventions like BBYO so powerful is that you are not alone. You can see that there are thousands of other teenagers out there. And I think it's really important for our generation to know that and acknowledge that the challenges that we face are truly unprecedented as a generation, from the existential threat of climate change to the systemic threat of racial injustice, violence, the rise of anti-Semitism and hatred generally. But I do have hope, and it's because throughout history, every time that we face similar challenges of the rise of fascism or hatred or any other existential threat to humanity, those moments forge new leaders that help address those problems and eventually overcome them. And I believe, unfortunately, our generation is at one of those times in human history with the unprecedented challenge of climate change, of gun violence, of all these other issues. But I'm also hopeful that, fortunately, I know that every single person that is watching this, every single person that is in that room when we're speaking, has the potential to be part of creating that change, has the potential to be that next leader that the world needs to guide us through this moment. And I think the reason why there aren't more of them is because people don't believe in themselves. And I want every single person that's watching this to know that, you can do everything that I've done or any of the other kids from Parkland have done, because we were just 17 and 16-year-olds when we started. And even if it's at a smaller scale and it doesn't get as much attention, it doesn't mean it's less important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm 17 myself right now, and yeah, it's incredible. So similarly, how do you prioritize your mental health and self-care while balancing this heavy advocacy work?
Yeah. So the way that I balance my mental health and self-care is I don't go on social media a lot, for one, as much as I used to. And two, I focus on trying to compartmentalize as much as I can so that when I'm in school mode and I'm really just trying to focus in on that. And I'm not trying to cross the two over with the advocacy work. Therapy has obviously been very helpful, but that also comes with a lot of the privilege of being able to afford it and go. And I think what's more helpful than anything is just having good friends outside of the movement, outside of being survivors of gun violence, that have their own lives, and knowing that there is a world outside of the movement. There is a world you don't have to talk about. I don't have to talk about gun violence every day. And I would hope people understand that you don't have to talk about the enormous trauma that comes with anti-Semitism every day, because it's a lot, I'm sure. Right? I don't like talking about the worst day of my life every day, for example. And I'm sure people don't like talking about the horrible things that are happening. And it's not to say that there isn't a time and place for that. There certainly is. It's just it doesn't have to be 24/7, and it can't be, because that is way too much pressure to put on any sole individual. And luckily, you're not alone in that.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here, sharing your story, participating in Tikkun Olam, talking to BBYO students, inspiring us. It really means a lot.
Yeah.